Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the window of the transport ship. The sight before her took her breath away. The Galactic Council's diplomatic station looked like a giant crystal floating in space. It was bigger than any city on Earth. Light danced across its surface in patterns that hurt her eyes to follow. "First time seeing the Grand Assembly Station?" asked the pilot. The pilot was not human. He had 4 arms and skin that looked like metal. His name was something Sarah could not say with her human mouth. "Yes," Sarah said. "It's beautiful." The pilot made a sound that might have been laughter. "Wait until you see the inside. They say it holds representatives from 12 different worlds. Each one stranger than the last." Sarah touched the badge on her jacket. It read, "Human Ambassador," in 17 different languages. Some of the languages were colors instead of words. Others were patterns of dots. She had spent 6 months learning how to read them. The transport ship moved closer to the station. Sarah could see other ships coming and going. Some looked like bubbles filled with gas. Others were long and thin like needles. One ship seemed to be made of living plants. "Dock 7, the pilot announced. "This is as far as I go. Good luck, Ambassador Chen." Sarah gathered her bags and stepped onto the docking platform. The air tasted strange. It was clean. Too clean. Like the air in a hospital, but worse. She could feel machines scanning her body as she walked. Red lights blinked when she passed. A tall figure approached her. It moved like water flowing upward. When it spoke, the words came from a box floating near its head. "Ambassador Chen, welcome to the Grand Assembly Station. I am Guide 779. I will show you to your quarters." Sarah tried to smile. "Thank you. I'm excited to be here." The guide made no expression. Sarah was not even sure it had a face. "Follow the blue line on the floor. Do not step outside the marked path." 4. They walked through corridors that changed color as they moved. Other beings passed them, but all kept their distance. Sarah saw creatures that looked like giant insects walking on their back legs. She saw beings made of what looked like solid light. One creature was just a cloud of purple gas in a clear suit. "Why do they all stay so far away?" Sarah asked. "Safety protocols," Guide 779 replied. "All new species must be observed before full contact is allowed." They stopped at a door marked with symbols Sarah had never seen before. The guide touched the wall, and the door opened. "These are your quarters. They are in Section K7. This area is designed for challenging biological requirements." "That?" Sarah stepped inside. The room was nice enough. It had a bed, a desk, and a small kitchen area, but everything was sealed behind glass panels. The air had the same hospital smell as the corridors. "Why is everything behind glass?" she asked. "For everyone's safety," the guide said. "Your meals will be provided through the feeding port. Water and air are filtered. Please do not tamper with any environmental systems." Sarah set down her bags. "When do I meet the other ambassadors?" "Tomorrow morning. There will be an orientation session. Please review the materials on your desk." The guide turned to leave, then stopped. "Ambassador Chen, a word of advice. It would be best if you contained yourself during your stay here." "What do you mean?" "Some species are more sensitive than others to foreign biological signatures. It would be wise to minimize your impact." The guide left. Sarah looked around her glass-walled quarters. She felt like an animal in a zoo. On the desk were information packets about the 12 species in the Galactic Council. Sarah sat down and began to read. The Zephyrians were made of living crystal and communicated with light. The Nebulites existed as conscious gas clouds. The Kythera were insects who shared one mind across their entire species. Each species description included a section marked, "Danger level to humans." Most were listed as minimal or low. But when Sarah looked for information about humans, she found something strange. Every other species had humans listed as extreme caution required or maintain safe distance. She read further. Humans were classified as coming from a Class 9 death world. Their planet was listed as having hostile atmospheric composition, aggressive biological agents, And extreme chemical diversity. Sarah laughed. They were talking about Earth. The same Earth where she grew up playing in her grandmother's garden. The same Earth where she studied ladybugs and helped injured birds. A soft chime sounded. A panel in the wall opened, revealing a tray of food. Sarah looked at what they had given her. It was a gray block that smelled like nothing. Next to it was a cup of clear liquid that tasted like water but somehow less. She ate the gray block. It filled her stomach but did not satisfy her hunger. It was like eating cardboard that had been designed by computers. After dinner, Sarah unpacked her bags. At the bottom of her suitcase, she found the emergency food supplies she had brought from Earth. Instant ramen, hot sauce, cheese crackers, and chocolate bars. She had packed them in case the alien food was terrible. Looking at the gray remains of her dinner, she realized she had been right to worry. Sarah put the Earth food in the small refrigerator unit. Tomorrow would be her first full day as humanity's ambassador to the galaxy. She wanted to make a good impression. She wanted to show these alien species that humans could be part of their peaceful community. As she got ready for bed, Sarah looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there were 7 billion humans, who were counting on her to represent them well. She had no idea that simply opening a package of ramen noodles could start a galactic incident. Sarah woke up to the sound of gentle music. The station's computer was playing something that sounded like wind chimes, mixed with whale songs. She dressed in her best diplomatic uniform and ate another gray food block for breakfast. At exactly 9 in the morning, Guide 779 appeared at her door. "Today, you will meet the other ambassadors," the guide announced. "Please follow all safety protocols. Do not touch anything unless given permission. Do not approach other beings closer than 2 meters unless invited." They walked to a large round room with a dome-shaped ceiling. The ceiling showed a view of space that slowly rotated. 12 different environmental zones surrounded the room. Each zone was designed for a different species. The Zephyrian ambassador stood in a chamber filled with bright, flashing lights. She looked like a woman made of living diamond. When she moved, rainbows danced across the walls. The Nebulite ambassador floated in a sphere of yellow gas. Sarah could barely see a shape inside the cloud. Something that might have been tentacles or wings. The Kithara ambassador was the most disturbing. She looked like a praying mantis the size of a human. Her large eyes seemed to look in several directions at once. When she spoke, 3 different voices came from her translator. "Welcome, human ambassador," the Kithara said. "We are curious about your species. Your planet's classification suggests interesting survival adaptations." Sarah tried to sound confident. "Thank you. We're excited to learn from all of you." The next few hours were a series of careful introductions. Each species had its own way of greeting. The Pelagians, who lived underwater on their homeworld, communicated through patterns of colored lights. The Caudians looked like giant rabbits and spoke in high-pitched musical tones. Everyone was polite, but Sarah noticed something strange. No one came close to her environmental zone. Even when talking to her, the other ambassadors stayed near their own areas. Their translators were set to maximum distance mode. During the morning break, Sarah approached the Caudian ambassador. The rabbit-like being had seemed the most friendly. "Hello," Sarah said. "I wanted to thank you for the welcome ceremony." It was beautiful. The Caudian's ears twitched nervously. "You are welcome, human Sarah. Your species is very interesting. Is something wrong? Everyone seems a little nervous around me." The Caudian looked around as if checking for danger. "It is nothing personal. Your species simply has a very strong biological signature. Our sensors detect many unusual compounds." "What kind of compounds?" "Well, your breath contains trace amounts of carbon dioxide at levels that would be toxic to most species. Your skin produces oils with complex chemical chains. Even your clothing carries residues from your homeworld that our computers classify as hazardous materials." Sarah looked down at her uniform. It was just regular Earth-made fabric. "But these are just normal clothes." "Normal for you, perhaps," the Caudian said gently. "But your normal is quite extreme by galactic standards." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement. It was time for the cultural exchange session. Dr. Vexhai, the station's xenobiologist, entered the chamber. He was tall and thin with pale skin that looked almost transparent. He moved very carefully, as if gravity was still strange to him. Today, each ambassador will share something unique about their civilization, Dr. Vexhai announced. This helps us understand each other better. Who would like to go first? The Zephyrian ambassador stepped forward. Her crystal body began to glow with complex patterns of light. The patterns told a story about her people's history. It was like watching a movie made of rainbows. When she finished, everyone made appreciative sounds. The Pelagian ambassador shared recordings of songs from the deep oceans of her world. The sounds were haunting and beautiful. They made Sarah think of whales singing in Earth's deepest trenches. The Cathara showed images of their collective art. Thousands of individuals had worked together to create sculptures that stretched across entire continents. It was impossible for one mind to imagine, but beautiful to see. When it was Sarah's turn, she wanted to share something uniquely human. She had prepared a presentation about Earth's diversity. But at the last moment, she decided to show something more personal. Food is very important to human culture, she began. We don't just eat to survive. We eat to celebrate, to remember, to connect with each other. Sarah activated her holographic display. Images of Earth foods appeared in the air above her. There was sushi from Japan, with raw fish arranged like artwork. There was curry from India, rich with spices and colors. She showed aged cheese from France, covered in blue-green mold. She displayed kimchi from Korea. Vegetables fermented until they bubbled with bacteria. The reaction was immediate. The Zephyrian's lights flickered and went dark. The Nebulite's gas cloud started swirling in rapid, panicked circles. The Katian made a sound like a scream and fell over backward. Dr. Vexhai's face went from pale to completely white. Ambassador Chen, please stop the presentation immediately. What's wrong? Sarah asked. It's just food. But looking around the room, Sarah saw terror. The Cathara was clicking rapidly in her own language. The Pelagians' lights were flashing red in what could only be a distress signal. 3 of the smaller species had backed into their emergency chambers. End presentation protocol, Dr. Vexhai shouted. Medical teams to assembly chamber, code yellow biological hazard. The holographic images disappeared. Alarms began sounding throughout the station. Sarah stood alone in her environmental zone, surrounded by the sounds of panic. I don't understand, she said to no one in particular. What did I do wrong? Guide 779 appeared beside her. Return to your quarters immediately. Do not interact with any station systems. Do not consume any materials from your personal supplies. But I haven't done anything dangerous, Sarah protested. That, said the guide, is what we need to determine. As Sarah was escorted from the assembly chamber, she could hear the other ambassadors talking in rapid, frightened voices. She caught fragments through the translators. Weaponized bacterial cultures. Controlled chemical burns. How do they survive consuming acids? Deliberate tissue damage for pleasure. Sarah realized with growing horror that they were talking about her food presentation. Somehow, sharing images of sushi and curry had been interpreted as a display of biological warfare. Back in her quarters, Sarah sat on her bed and tried to understand what had gone wrong. Everything she had shown them was normal Earth food. Things her grandmother had cooked for her as a child. Things she bought at the grocery store without thinking twice. But as she thought about it from an alien perspective, she began to see the problem. Raw fish could carry parasites. Spicy foods contained chemical compounds that caused pain. Fermented vegetables were full of living bacteria. Aged cheese was literally controlled decay. To species that had evolved on safer worlds, human food probably looked like a collection of biological weapons. The question was, what was she going to do about it? Sarah spent the rest of the day alone in her quarters. No one came to explain what had happened. No one came to apologize for the panic. The station's computer delivered another gray food block at dinner time. But Sarah was too upset to eat it. She tried to contact Earth, but communications were blocked. She tried to access the station's information network, but her access had been restricted. She was effectively under quarantine, and no one would tell her why. As the station's artificial night cycle began, Sarah made a decision. She was tired of being treated like a dangerous animal. She was tired of eating flavorless gray blocks. She was tired of being afraid to act like a normal human being. She went to the small refrigerator and pulled out her emergency food supplies. If they thought her holographic presentation of human food was scary, that was their problem. She was hungry, and she was going to eat real food. Sarah chose something simple. Instant ramen noodles with hot sauce, some cheese crackers, and a piece of chocolate. Nothing extreme. Nothing that would seem dangerous to a reasonable person. She filled a pot with water and turned on the small heating element. While the water heated, she opened the package of ramen noodles. The smell of dried vegetables and artificial chicken flavoring filled the air. Sarah did not notice the environmental sensors in her quarters suddenly activating. She did not see the red warning lights that began flashing in the station's control center. In the station's main monitoring room, Dr. Vexhai was working late when his computer began screaming warnings. Level 7 biological hazard detected, the computer announced. Atmospheric contamination in progress. Unknown chemical weapons deployment in Section K7. Dr. Vexhai ran to the nearest monitoring station. The readings made no sense. The sensors were detecting massive amounts of chemical compounds that the station's database classified as industrial toxins. Computer, identify the source of contamination. Source, human quarters, Section K7. Detecting massive release of volatile organic compounds. Chemical signature matches known nerve agents and cellular disruptors. Dr. Vexhai grabbed an emergency communication device. Security team to Section K7 immediately. Full hazmat protocols. Possible biological weapon deployment. Back in her quarters, Sarah was stirring her ramen noodles when she heard running footsteps in the corridor. The water had boiled, and she had just added the flavor packet. The small room filled with the comfortable smell of chicken soup. She opened the bottle of hot sauce and added 3 drops to her bowl. The sauce was made from Carolina Reaper peppers, one of the hottest varieties on Earth. To Sarah, 3 drops would just add a nice warmth to her meal. The environmental sensors registered the capsaicin as a level 9 neurotoxin. Dr. Vexhai arrived outside Sarah's quarters with a full emergency response team. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he could see her sitting calmly at her small table. She was stirring something in a bowl. Steam rose from whatever she was preparing. Is she weaponizing biological agents? Asked the security chief. Dr. Vexhai checked his readings. The computer says yes. But look at her. She seems completely calm. They watched as Sarah opened a package of cheese crackers and began eating them while her noodles cooled. She looked relaxed, even happy. Maybe she's testing her own resistance to the toxins, suggested one of the technicians. Or maybe, Dr. Vexhai said slowly, she doesn't know she's creating a cloud of poison. Sarah took her first bite of ramen noodles. The hot sauce provided a pleasant burn that made her eyes water slightly. After days of gray food blocks, the simple meal tasted like heaven. Outside her quarters, the emergency team's equipment registered readings that made several of them step back in alarm. Sir, the technician said, she just consumed enough neurotoxin to kill a small city. And she's smiling, the security chief added. Dr. Vexhai realized they were dealing with something unprecedented. He activated the emergency communication system. Ambassador Chen, this is Dr. Vexhai. Please respond. Sarah looked up from her noodles, surprised to hear a voice. She could see figures in environmental suits outside her quarters. Dr. Vexhai, what's wrong? Why is everyone wearing protective gear? Ambassador, we need you to stop what you are doing immediately. Our sensors are detecting extremely dangerous levels of chemical contamination. Sarah looked around her quarters. Everything seemed normal. Contamination? I don't see anything dangerous. What are you consuming? Dr. Vexhai asked. Just ramen noodles, Sarah replied, with a little hot sauce and some crackers. There was a long silence from the other side of the wall. Hot sauce? Dr. Vexhai finally asked. Yes. Just 3 drops. It's not even very spicy. Dr. Vexhai turned to his team. She's consuming capsaicin. Deliberately, for pleasure. The security chief checked his database. Capsaicin is classified as a Class A neurotoxin. Exposure to even trace amounts causes immediate cellular destruction in most known life forms. She put it on her food, Dr. Vexhai said in amazement. She's eating poison because she likes the taste. Sarah, unaware of the conversation happening outside, continued eating her meal. She opened the piece of chocolate and took a small bite. The dark chocolate was bitter and rich, with hints of coffee and vanilla. The sensors detected theobromine and immediately classified it as a cardiac toxin. Now she's consuming compounds that would cause immediate heart failure in any of the council species, the technician reported. Dr. Vexhai watched as Sarah calmly finished her meal. She cleaned her bowl, put away her supplies, and sat down to read a book. She looked completely healthy and relaxed. Computer, Dr. Vexhai said quietly, run a full analysis on human biology. Focus on digestive systems and toxin resistance. The computer worked for several minutes before responding. Analysis complete. Human digestive system is capable of processing compounds that would be lethal to 98.7% of known galactic species. Humans appear to have evolved on a world where consuming toxins is necessary for survival. Dr. Vexhai stared at the peaceful human in her quarters. She had just eaten enough poison to kill everyone on the station, and she was reading a book as if nothing had happened. Sir, the security chief asked, what are your orders? Dr. Vexhai thought carefully. The human was not deliberately trying to create biological weapons. She was just eating dinner. But from a galactic perspective, her dinner was more dangerous than most military-grade chemical weapons. Maintain the containment field, he decided, and call an emergency session of the council. We need to discuss what to do about humanity. What's the charge? The security chief asked. Dr. Vexhai watched Sarah turn a page in her book. Existing while extremely dangerous. As the emergency team maintained their watch, word spread quickly through the station. The human had opened her meal and consumed chemical weapons as if they were candy. Every species had the same reaction. Fear. Sarah, still reading her book and enjoying the comfortable feeling of a real meal in her stomach, had no idea that she had just become the most feared being in the galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called at dawn. All 12 ambassadors gathered in the main assembly chamber, but this time the mood was very different. Everyone stayed in their most protected environmental zones. Extra security forces surrounded the chamber. Dr. Vexhai stood in the center, holding a datapad filled with his research. His hands shook slightly as he prepared to speak. Fellow ambassadors, he began, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Our analysis of the human ambassador has revealed information that changes everything we thought we knew about Earth and its inhabitants. The Zephyrian ambassador's crystal body flickered nervously. Is the human dangerous? Should we terminate the diplomatic mission? That, Dr. Vexhai said, is exactly what we need to discuss. He activated the main holographic display. Charts and graphs appeared in the air, showing chemical analyses and biological data. 3 days ago, the human gave a cultural presentation about her species' food. Yesterday evening, she consumed a meal from her personal supplies. Our sensors recorded everything. The first image showed Sarah's bowl of ramen noodles. To human eyes, it looked like a simple, comforting meal. To the assembled aliens, it looked like a weapon of mass destruction. This is capsaicin, Doctor, Vexhai explained, highlighting the hot sauce. The human consumed this substance deliberately. For pleasure. Capsaicin is a neurotoxin that binds to pain receptors and causes immediate cellular damage. In the concentration the human consumed, it would kill every species in this chamber within minutes. Shocked murmurs filled the assembly chamber. The Kadian ambassador made a sound like a whimper. But that is not the most disturbing part, Doctor, Vexhai continued. The human's body processed this toxin without any negative effects. In fact, her brain chemistry showed increased pleasure responses while consuming it. The next image showed the cheese crackers. These food items were created through bacterial fermentation. The human was eating billions of living bacteria. Bacteria that would be classified as biological weapons by our standards. The Pelagian ambassador's lights flashed in distress patterns. How is this possible? No known species can survive such exposure. The answer, Dr. Vexhai said, lies in human evolution. Earth is classified as a Class 9 death world. This classification was based on atmospheric analysis and surface scans. We thought it meant the planet was merely hostile. We were wrong. It means the planet is so dangerous that anything capable of evolving there must be, by definition, extremely dangerous itself. New charts appeared, showing Earth's biological history. Images of extinct Earth creatures filled the display. Dinosaurs, saber-toothed cats, giant insects, venomous snakes. Earth has experienced 7 major extinction events. Each time, 90% or more of all life died, but some species survived. Those survivors had to adapt to eat anything that wouldn't kill them immediately. Over millions of years, this created a biological arms race. Dr. Vexhai paused to let this information sink in. Plants developed toxins to avoid being eaten. Animals developed stronger toxin resistance to eat those plants. Plants developed stronger toxins. Animals developed stronger resistance. This cycle continued for hundreds of millions of years. The Kithara ambassador spoke in 3 overlapping voices. You are saying that humans evolved to be immune to poisons? Not immune, Dr. Vexhai corrected. Resistant. But their resistance levels are so high that what we consider deadly toxins, they consider food seasonings. The display showed a comparison chart of toxin resistance across species. Humans were off the scale. Humans consume ethanol as a recreational drug. Ethanol dissolves cellular membranes in most species. They drink coffee, which contains caffeine, a cardiac stimulant that would kill most of us instantly. They eat chocolate, which contains theobromine, another cardiac toxin. The assembled ambassadors looked horrified. Several were backing toward their emergency escape pods. They deliberately seek out foods that cause pain, Dr. Vexhai continued. They have learned to ferment foods, encouraging bacterial growth that would be considered biological warfare. They expose their food to temperatures that would kill most species, in a process they call cooking. The nebulite ambassador's gas cloud swirled in agitation. If they are so dangerous, why did they request diplomatic contact? Are they planning to conquer the galaxy? This is what puzzles me, Dr. Vexhai admitted. Every indication suggests that they do not consider themselves dangerous. The human ambassador seems genuinely confused by our reactions. She appears to believe that consuming neurotoxins is normal behavior. Perhaps, suggested the Kotian ambassador in a tiny voice, they do not realize how deadly they are to other species. Dr. Vexhai nodded. This is possible. From their perspective, they are simply eating normal food. They have no frame of reference for how extreme their biology appears to other species. The security chief stepped forward. Dr. Vexhai, what are your recommendations? Should we quarantine the human? Should we terminate diplomatic relations with Earth? Dr. Vexhai looked at his data again. This is the problem. Despite being biologically terrifying, the human has shown no aggressive behavior. She has been polite, respectful, and genuinely interested in peaceful relations. She only became dangerous when she tried to eat dinner. The chamber fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. How do you conduct diplomacy with a species that could accidentally poison everyone just by eating lunch? The Zephyrian ambassador's lights pulsed slowly. What does the human say about all this? She has not yet been informed of our findings, Dr. Vexhai replied. We wanted to consult with the council first. And what about Earth itself? Asked the Pelagian ambassador. If humans are this dangerous, what must their planet be like? Dr. Vexhai brought up new images, Earth's oceans, forests, and cities. According to our analysis, Earth contains more active biological toxins per square kilometer than any known world. It has acidic rain, toxic plant life, venomous animals, and atmospheric conditions that would kill most of us in minutes. Yet billions of humans live there comfortably, he continued. They have built a complex civilization. They have art, music, literature, and science. They are not mindless killers. They are simply extremely well adapted to surviving in impossible conditions. The Kithara ambassador's insect eyes fixed on Dr. Vex High. So we have a choice. We can reject humanity because they are too dangerous to interact with safely. Or we can try to find a way to work with them. But how? Asked the Kadian ambassador. How do we conduct diplomacy with beings who could kill us just by breathing in our direction? Dr. Vex High turned off the holographic display. That is what we need to decide. Do we see humans as a threat to be contained? Or do we see them as a species that might have something valuable to offer the galaxy? What could they possibly offer? The Nebulite ambassador asked. Dr. Vex High thought about the human ambassador, sitting quietly in her quarters, reading a book after consuming enough toxins to sterilize a spaceship. Survival skills, he said finally. The ability to thrive in impossible conditions. The knowledge of how to turn deadly environments into livable ones, and perhaps most importantly, the courage to face danger instead of running from it. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species wanted immediate quarantine of all humans. Others argued for careful study. A few wondered if humans might be useful allies in exploring dangerous regions of space. But everyone agreed on one thing. The galaxy would never be the same now that humanity had arrived. Sarah sat in her quarters, completely unaware that the fate of human-galactic relations was being decided in an emergency council session. She was reading a book about alien cultures when Guide 779 appeared at her door. Ambassador Chen, the council requests your presence in the main assembly chamber. Sarah looked up. The guide seemed more nervous than usual, which was saying something. Is everything all right? No one has spoken to me since yesterday. The council will explain everything. Please follow me. They walked through corridors that seemed unusually empty. Sarah noticed that every alien they passed quickly moved away when they saw her coming. Security barriers activated automatically as she walked by. Guide 779. Why is everyone acting like I'm dangerous? The guide was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps it would be better if Dr. Vex High explains. The assembly chamber was arranged differently than before. All the ambassadors were in their most protected environmental zones. Extra barriers had been installed. Sarah was directed to a platform in the center of the room, completely isolated from everyone else. Dr. Vex High approached, but stayed behind a transparent wall. Ambassador Chen, we need to discuss what happened yesterday when you ate your meal. Sarah felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. What about it? I just ate some ramen noodles. According to our sensors, you consumed enough toxins to kill everyone in this room. Sarah stared at him. Toxins? It was just food. Normal Earth food. Dr. Vex's High activated a holographic display. This is what our computers detected when you added hot sauce to your meal. Sarah looked at the chemical analysis charts. The readings looked like something from a weapons laboratory. This can't be right. Hot sauce isn't toxic. I eat it all the time. To us, capsaicin is a deadly neurotoxin, Dr. Vex High explained gently. The amount you consumed would cause immediate death to any council species. Sarah felt the room spinning. But it's just food. My grandmother used to make me spicier food than that. The Kadian ambassador spoke up from her protected chamber. Ambassador Chen, we do not think you intended to threaten anyone. But you must understand how this appears to us. You casually consume substances that we use in our most dangerous research laboratories. Sarah looked around the room at all the frightened alien faces. You think I'm some kind of weapon? We think, said Dr. Vex High carefully, that humans have evolved under conditions so extreme that your normal behavior is deadly to most other species. For several minutes, Sarah sat in stunned silence. Then she began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone realizing how absurd the situation had become. You're afraid of me because I ate ramen noodles with hot sauce. Among other things, yes, Dr. Vex High admitted. Sarah stood up. Dr. Vex High. May I address the full council? Of course. That is why you are here. Sarah took a deep breath and looked at each ambassador in turn. They all seemed ready to flee at any moment. I understand why you're frightened, she began. From your perspective, I must seem like a walking biological disaster. But I want you to understand something about humans. She gestured to the chemical analysis charts. You see these readings and you think weapons. But do you know why humans evolved to eat these things? The Zephyrian ambassador's lights flickered curiously. Why? Because we had to, Sarah said simply. Earth didn't give us a choice. During ice ages, the only plants that survived were ones that made toxins to protect themselves. We learned to eat them, or we starved. During droughts, the only safe way to preserve food was to ferment it, encouraging bacterial growth that would fight off more dangerous bacteria. She pointed to the capsaicin readings. Hot peppers grow in climates where food spoils quickly. The capsaicin preserves the food and kills harmful bacteria. We didn't learn to eat spicy food because we enjoy pain. We learned because it helped us survive. The Pelagian ambassador's lights shifted to a more interested pattern. You are saying humans eat toxins for practical reasons? Exactly. And over millions of years, we got better at it. We learned that many poisons in small doses could be medicine. We learned that controlled bacterial growth could preserve food for long journeys. We learned that cooking food with fire made dangerous things safe to eat. Sarah walked to the edge of her isolated platform. You see humans as dangerous because we eat things that would kill you. But we see ourselves as survivors because we learned to make dangerous things safe. Dr. Vexhai consulted his data pad. What are you proposing, Ambassador Chen? Sarah smiled. I'm proposing that maybe the galaxy needs a species that isn't afraid of dangerous things. You have 12 species here, all from safe worlds with stable climates and peaceful evolution. That's wonderful. But what happens when you encounter something that isn't safe? The council chamber was completely quiet now. Everyone was listening. What happens when you need to explore a planet with toxic atmospheres? What happens when you need to clean up environmental disasters? What happens when you encounter dangerous bacteria or chemical contamination? Sarah gestured to herself. You send the species that evolved to handle those problems. You send the humans. The Cathera ambassador spoke in her 3 overlapping voices. You are suggesting that human toxin resistance could be useful? I'm suggesting that every species brings something valuable to the galaxy, Sarah replied. The Zephyrians bring their ability to compute with light. The Pelagians bring their deep ocean exploration skills. The Cathara bring their collective intelligence. She paused. Humans bring the ability to survive and work in conditions that would kill everyone else. We bring the knowledge of how to take deadly environments and make them livable. The Caudian ambassador leaned forward. But how would we work together safely? Sarah thought for a moment. The same way we work with dangerous things on Earth. Carefully. With proper safety protocols. With respect for the risks involved. She looked at Dr. Vex High. You've spent the last day studying human biology like we're some kind of weapon. But has anyone considered that our biology might be useful for things other than warfare? Dr. Vexhai consulted his computer. What do you mean? We could explore toxic worlds that no other species could survive. We could help clean up environmental disasters. We could serve as living laboratories for studying dangerous chemical processes safely. Sarah sat back down. Or you could quarantine Earth and never speak to us again. That's your choice. But I think you'd be missing an opportunity. The council chamber erupted in quiet discussions. Ambassadors talked rapidly in their own languages while computers translated. Finally, the Zephyrian ambassador spoke for the group. Ambassador Chen. What guarantee do we have that humans would use these abilities peacefully? Sarah smiled sadly. The same guarantee any species offers. None. You have to decide whether to trust us or fear us. But I can tell you this. Humans didn't survive millions of years on a death world by being mindlessly aggressive. We survived by being smart, adaptable, and cooperative. She stood up again. We didn't ask to evolve on a dangerous planet, but we did. and we made the best of it. We learned to find joy, even in the face of danger. We learned to share meals, even when those meals could kill our neighbors. Sarah looked around the room. I ate ramen noodles with hot sauce because it reminded me of home. It reminded me of my grandmother teaching me to cook, of friends sharing meals, of the warmth that comes from eating together, even when the world outside is cold and dangerous. The room was silent for a long time. Finally, Dr. Vex Hai spoke. Ambassador Chen, the council needs to discuss this privately, but I want you to know that your words have given us much to think about. Sarah nodded. Take all the time you need. I'll be in my quarters, probably eating something that will terrify your censors. As she was escorted from the chamber, Sarah heard the beginnings of intense debate behind her. Some ambassadors argued for caution, others for opportunity. 3 hours later, Guide 779 returned with an announcement. The Council has reached a decision. Humanity has been granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with special status as the emergency response species. You will be assigned to situations that are too dangerous for other species to handle. Sarah felt a wave of relief. And the food situation? You will be allowed to eat whatever you choose, within your designated quarters. But perhaps we could arrange for some educational exchanges? Some of our species are curious about how humans can find pleasure in consuming toxins. Sarah grinned. I'd be happy to teach a cooking class, though we might want to start with something mild. Maybe tea and cookies. Guide 779 paused. Tea contains caffeine, which is a cardiac toxin, and cookies often contain chocolate, which contains theobromine, another cardiac toxin. Sarah's grin widened. Then we'd better start with something really safe. How do you feel about plain water? As long as it's not the kind humans drink on Earth, our analysis shows it contains dissolved minerals that would be toxic to most species. For the first time since arriving at the station, Sarah laughed with genuine happiness. This is going to be an interesting partnership. 6 months later, the first human emergency response team was exploring a planet with an atmosphere so toxic that the Council's sensors couldn't even classify all the dangerous compounds. To the human team, it smelled like a garden after rain, and in the station's cafeteria, Dr. Vex Hai was carefully sipping a cup of tea that had been diluted to 1/10 normal strength. Marveling at the strange tingling sensation on his tongue and the slight increase in his heart rate. Fascinating, he murmured, taking another tiny sip. It's like being gently poisoned, but in an oddly pleasant way. At the next table, Sarah was eating a bowl of mild curry, enjoying the way the other diners watched in amazed terror as she consumed what they considered weapons-grade biological agents with obvious pleasure. It wasn't the diplomatic mission she had imagined, but it was the beginning of something new. A galaxy where being dangerous wasn't the same as being evil, and where humanity's greatest weaknesses had become their most valuable strengths.